I admit it. I'm a 30-something English professor who loves to play video games as often as I can. And I'm quite varied in my interests. I play everything from zombie shoot-'em-ups to sprawling, compelling video games that take me dozens of hours to complete. And I can play for hours at a time. And I have been known to get so caught up in the intensity of a game that my husband gently suggests I put the controller down for a bit. I want to share with you me. As that kid growing up, just as home video game consoles and arcade games were really starting to take off in earnest. Now, I suppose that means that I was a girl gamer before that term entered our more modern lexicon. And yes, that term needs a lot of work. And I hope that my talk here today will help to transform your vision of who a gamer might be. And I also hope to transform your vision of video games themselves and why it is that they're so popular with gamers of all ages and backgrounds. The best video games out there tell stunning stories that share big ideas and give us not only possibilities for the form now, but tantalizing glimpses into what might come in the future. Now, do any of you remember the thrill of games like Night Driver and Pong? Now, I was astounded by the heavily pixelated, barely discernible images moving in front of me. I could control a car at breakneck speed. Okay, maybe it was only vaguely car-like, but still. Or I could battle my computer-controlled opponent in a breathless contest for points. Now, as my love for video games continued and evolved, I was, of course, impressed that the graphics began to improve. Now that heavily pixelated blob of a car was an actual car right there in front of me. Heavily pixelated human characters, who otherwise never really moved any of their limbs and just sort of stiffly bobbled along, became distinctly human. And now, through technology like motion capture, the images are astounding. Emotive facial expressions, characters' bodies that reflect battle wounds and wrinkles, fear, pain, and love. But that's only one part of what has impressed me so much with the evolution of gaming. I have been so impressed by the power that these stories often tell. And I hope that even if you never pick up a game controller in your entire life, that you will be as well. Now, I've worked in higher education as an instructor since 2004, and those educational experiences can feel daunting at times, as I look for ways to connect to my students, and then to connect them to the material that I'm teaching. And any of you that are educators out there today, I know that you have felt those same challenges. For me, what I found is that video games can provide a way to connect to my students, and to connect them to ideas that otherwise might be more challenging or less of an interest to them. And so what I've done in my own classroom is I've brought in still images, and I've even brought in one of my gaming consoles into the classroom so that my students and I can game live and explore the environment together. So why should you consider video games more carefully than you may have done at all before today? Well, let's start here. For those of you that are educators, you probably use things like film or video and other forms of media as a part of your learning environment. Or if you don't teach, these are media forms that you probably know and love and use every single day. And video games might be a media form that you haven't thought of before. But most importantly, video games are inherently participatory. A video game like BioShock Infinite, for example, takes 35 to 40 hours to complete. And there are games out there that take dozens more hours than that. So I want you to consider for a moment what is possible with that depth and length of storytelling. So let's put this in perspective. The average season of a network show is far less than 35 or 40 hours. So if any of you have gone to the end of your favorite show and you're sitting there, credits are rolling and you're awed and your jaw's dropped and there's so much for you to watch and to rewatch and to think about, video games can do that to you too. So you'll see now a glimpse into the possibilities that video games have with their storytelling and how their ideas invoke debate, discussion, and big thinking. Now, the BioShock series deals broadly with issues of morality and dystopia. And you'll learn about the first and the third of those games today. BioShock, from 2007, chronicles the fall of the once utopian city Rapture and how it has devolved into a nightmarish, leaking ruin because of its own citizens. Without any requirement for a moral compass, Rapture's citizens have used science to experiment on their own bodies and genetics using plasmids. Now, these unfortunate folks become known as splicers, and they are insane and horribly physically twisted. So consider here the possibility not only to talk about the causes of dystopia, but what happens in any society when there is no morality at all. And now the game itself hinges on a moral choice for the player. Players have to choose whether to gain an immediate gameplay advantage by killing vulnerable children known as little sisters, or saving them from their monstrous fate as drones by saving them instead. Now, I admit it, I'm a softie. I saved all of the little sisters in the game. And you see her there being terrorized. Yeah, could any of you do differently? And the game doesn't offer you any real leeway in this regard. So a player can't say, try to save half of the little sisters to gain a partial advantage. If any more than one of the little sisters is harvested, the game's term, then the player will get the game's negative ending, one which sees Rapture's chaos unleashed upon the rest of the world. BioShock Infinite came out in 2012, and I admit I'm a bit of a fangirl for this one, and I may even have cried at the end. It deals with religion as a form of social control. Antagonist Prophet Comstock has manipulated his image into that of a near deity, and he rules with a combination of religious authority and violence through the crushing of rebellion and the oppression of the poor and the working class. And it's also a game that takes place in somewhat of an alternate history. The floating city of Columbia literally breaks away from America in 1893 and breaks off allegiance in 1902. And now this is also a world in which the citizens of Columbia worship the founding fathers as deities, and this is to Prophet Comstock's advantage. So consider, do any of you remember reading the short story Rip Van Winkle and thinking about the dangers of sleeping through life and history? Well, Prophet Comstock has manipulated history on a number of levels and has pulled it out from under the citizens of Columbia, including the deification of the founding fathers. So one of the other challenges we often face is how to connect young people to the environmental challenges of our world, including the extinction of entire species caused by our actions. Dishonored, released in 2012, takes place in the polluted, plague-ridden, and industrial city of Dunwall. Now, Dunwall is powered in large part by whale oil, and as a result, whales have been hunted, slaughtered, and butchered, seemingly to near extinction. And the game doesn't skimp on the graphic bloodiness of this, perhaps most especially so in the game's DLC, The Knife of Dunwall. Now, you may have heard that term before, but a DLC is short for downloadable content, and that adds additional storylines or chapters into the main game. And to be honest, those images in The Knife of Dunwall are so graphic, bloody, and terrible that I couldn't bear to show those to you here today. But I think it is a testament to the game developers for being willing to show something so uncompromisingly repugnant in order to spark the greater debate. The Assassin's Creed series consists of a number of games released over the last several years, and my focus is going to be on the most recent DLC, Freedom Cry, which is a part of Assassin's Creed 4. The game takes place in the Caribbean and deals with the slave trade not only in the Caribbean, but also and specifically in Haiti. So this game provides ideas that provide additional discussion to any debate and discussion about slavery in the United States. Now you play as Adewale, a former slave. And in the game's most wrenching and somber moment, Adewale has to escape from a sinking slave ship. Now, as he tries to do so, however, slaves who are shackled either to one another or to the ship itself will desperately scream and cry for your help. And now you can save some, but not all of these souls. And saving any of them requires a steady hand amidst the rising water level and their terrified screams. So the sense of horror, anger, frustration, and futility over these inhumane circumstances all come graphically to life. So the last of our big ideas for today come from 2013's The Last of Us, a game with one of the most compelling, provocative, and devastating stories that I've encountered. And personally, as a gamer, this was one of the most tense and white-knuckled experiences that I've had. And one of those cases where my husband suggested that I set the controller down for a bit. So the game deals with the spread of the cordyceps infection. And this is a real existing fungal infection that allows the fungus to take over its host, mind and body. Now, in the context of the game, the fungus jumps species, and the infection not only infects human beings, but takes out a large portion of our population, leading to infected who function kind of similarly to zombies, and very few human beings who are left to struggle in this world. And there are great opportunities here to consider science, especially the spread of infectious disease. Because after the game was released, scientists swore that cordyceps could not jump species this way. In the context of the game, some 20 years after the infection begins, the scientists who are left are not any closer to a cure or a vaccine. You are thrown into a world in which all of the markers of our greatness, our industry, our history, our culture, are useless in the face of a simple fungal infection. Nature is won. And it's also a game in which you will watch a complex moral choice unfold, one which is part of the game itself, so you're not going to make choices in this regard. Now, Ellie, who is just 15, is immune to the infection. She's wanted by a resistance group known as the Fireflies, who want to study her in order to develop a vaccine. Now, you play as the older protagonist, Joel, who agrees to deliver Ellie to them. Once he learns that the only way they can study her is to kill her, they want to dissect her brain tissue, he rescues her instead, killing everybody in his path. As he says, you just come after her if he were to leave any of them alive. And now your feelings towards all of this as the gamer will be quite conflicted at this point, given the many hours you've invested in this storyline. Yes, Joel takes away the possibility of a cure for all of humanity. Yet the game also makes clear that the Fireflies have never come any closer to a cure or a vaccine, and that they may have similarly sacrificed those with natural immunity before to no avail. So the game asks the most complex of questions of you. What is the value of the life of one child? Or of any one person? And if this were real, what would you do? Would you save that one child, even if it cost everybody else? I'm a gamer who grew up to be an older female gamer who found a passion in teaching and a love of finding new ways to share big ideas. And playing video games didn't make me antisocial or violent. Now, quirky? Yeah, perhaps. I've seen everything from Pong to The Last of Us, and I'm so excited for what the future of gaming will bring. What do you hope to see? Thank you very much.